My dad skipped my graduation, calling it a loser's ceremony. He said it loud enough for the entire kitchen to hear, loud enough for my mother to stop washing dishes and stare at the sink, like the plates had suddenly become fascinating. A piece of paper doesn't make a man, he muttered, buttoning his expensive coat. Winners build businesses, losers collect certificates. I still remember the smell of burnt tea leaves on the stove, the ceiling fan clicking overhead, my graduation gown hanging beside the doorway like someone else's achievement. My younger brother laughed under his breath. My aunt smirked while scrolling through her phone, and then my father looked directly at me and delivered the sentence that stayed in my bloodstream for years. If you walk across that stage tomorrow, don't expect me there. The next morning, every seat in the family section was empty. While other graduates waved at cheering parents, I walked alone beneath bright auditorium lights that felt colder than winter rain. The applause echoed strangely when it's not meant for you. I could hear cameras clicking, parents crying, flowers rustling in plastic wraps, but no one called my name except the announcer. After the ceremony, I stood outside holding my degree while families embraced around me like scenes from movies I'd never been cast in. My phone buzzed once, a message from my father. Pick up milk on your way home. That was the moment something inside me went silent, not broken, not angry, just silent. And silence, I would later learn, is where the most dangerous kind of revenge begins. I was the invisible son in a family obsessed with loud people. My father worshipped confidence the way some men worship religion. He admired sharp handshakes, luxury watches, deep voices, and people who interrupted others at dinner tables. My younger brother Hamza inherited all of it naturally. He could fail 3 classes and still be called promising because he smiled like success already belonged to him. I was quieter, careful, the kind of person who listened longer than he spoke. In our house that translated to weak. My father introduced Hamza as my future. He introduced me by my degree program. Usually with a disappointed shrug afterward. Computer stuff, he'd say. Nothing practical yet. He never noticed I paid attention to everything. The overdue bills hidden beneath newspapers. The calls from creditors that made my mother's face tighten. The way my father kept buying status symbols while the electricity flickered twice a week. I learned early that loud men often mistake noise for power. So while Hamza chased attention, I chased skills. I spent nights teaching myself programming from borrowed laptops with cracked hinges. I freelanced anonymously online under fake usernames. Because my father mocked remote work as internet pocket money. Sometimes I earned more in a week than he did in a month, but I never corrected him. People reveal themselves more honestly when they believe you're beneath them. And my family believed it completely. The insults in my family were never dramatic enough to defend yourself against. And that was the clever part. They arrived disguised as jokes. Casual comments dropped between meals. Soft enough to deny later if you reacted. At dinner, my father would ask Hamza about his social life. His gym progress. His plans. Then his eyes would drift toward me as if remembering an unfinished chore. You still sit in that room all day. The table usually went quiet after that. Not uncomfortable quiet. Familiar quiet. The kind people practice over years. My mother would lower her gaze to her plate. Hamza would smirk into his water glass. And my father would continue eating. Satisfied he had reminded everyone where I belonged. One evening relatives visited for tea. My aunt asked what I did for work. Before I could answer my father chuckled. He plays with computers. We're still waiting for the millionaire phase. Everyone laughed politely. I laughed too. That bothered him more. I noticed small things during those years. How my father only spoke gently to people richer than him. How he interrupted me mid-sentence. But listened carefully when strangers repeated the exact same idea louder. Sometimes he'd stand outside my bedroom door while I worked late into the night, blue monitor light spilling across the hallway. You're wasting your 20s, he said once before walking away. I remember staring at the closed door afterward, hearing his footsteps fade down the corridor, and thinking, maybe or maybe I was building something none of them could yet recognize. The turning point came on a Tuesday night, so ordinary it almost escaped my memory. Rain tapped softly against my apartment windows while I sat at my desk reviewing contracts from 3 different clients in 3 different countries. Lines of code reflected across the dark screen like moving constellations. My coffee had gone cold hours earlier, then my phone rang. My mother, I almost ignored it. Her voice sounded strained, carefully controlled. The bank came today, she whispered. Your father didn't tell anyone how bad things were. I leaned back slowly, staring at the ceiling. Suddenly every puzzle piece I'd quietly collected over the years locked into place. The expensive dinners, the leased car, the fake confidence, the unopened envelopes hidden in drawers. My father wasn't powerful, he was drowning theatrically. That same night, Hamza posted photos from a rooftop lounge downtown. Designer shirt half-buttoned, captions about winning in life. Meanwhile, my mother was calculating which bills could survive another month unpaid. Something inside me settled then, not rage, clarity. I opened my business dashboard and stared at the numbers I had spent years hiding from everyone. Contracts, investments, savings. Quiet success accumulated one invisible night at a time. For years I had waited for respect to arrive naturally, but some people only recognize value after they lose access to it. And for the first time in my life, I stopped wanting my father's approval. I started wondering what his face would look like when he realized he needed mine instead. I didn't move immediately. That's the difference between revenge and impulse. Impulse is emotional, loud, sloppy. I preferred patience. Over the next few weeks, I listened more carefully than ever. My father spoke constantly once you stopped trying to interrupt him. I learned his construction business was collapsing beneath unpaid loans and delayed supplier payments. 2 investors were threatening legal action. The bank had already begun freezing accounts tied to certain projects. And still every evening, he sat at the head of the dinner table pretending control. I never exposed him. I simply prepared. By then, I'd spent nearly 6 years building cybersecurity systems for international firms under a private consulting company registered quietly in my own name. Most clients had never even seen my face. They only knew my work arrived early, solved problems, and made them money. Silent competence scales faster than ego. I contacted my accountant first, then my attorney. Every transfer, investment, and property purchase was reviewed carefully. Clean records, separate liabilities, no emotional decisions. I moved my mother's medical expenses into a private account she could access without asking my father for permission. I paid off a portion of her debts anonymously through legal channels so no one could trace it back immediately. Then I waited. People like my father never collapse all at once. They decay publicly in layers. And eventually, exactly as I expected, the phone calls started coming more often. His voice softer each time. The call came just after midnight. My father never called that late unless something had broken. I answered without speaking. For a few seconds, all I heard was breathing, heavy, uneven. Somewhere behind him, a television murmured softly in an empty room. Then his voice arrived, smaller than I had ever heard it. "We need to talk. Not how are you, not I'm sorry, just need." The next afternoon, I drove to my parents' house for the first time in months. The driveway was empty except for my father's car, the expensive one he once polished every Sunday morning. Dust coated the hood now. Inside the house felt strangely fragile, curtains drawn, lights dimmed. My mother looked tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. And my father, he wouldn't meet my eyes at first. The bank had frozen another account. Investors were pulling out. One lawsuit alone could finish him. Then came the sentence he struggled most to say. "I heard your business is doing well." There it was. Not pride, recognition, delayed by years. Hamza sat silently in the corner scrolling his dead phone screen because his service had been cut off that morning. I listened calmly while my father explained numbers, debts, timelines. The same man who once mocked internet pocket money now spoke to me like a banker across a negotiation table. When he finally asked for help, the room became perfectly still. And for the first time in my life, I let the silence answer before I did. Word spread through the family faster than I expected. Not about the debt, about me. Relatives who once forgot my birthday suddenly found reasons to call. My aunt, the same one who laughed at my millionaire phase, now spoke with careful politeness, asking about my work like she was interviewing someone important. Even Hamza stopped making jokes once he realized I could quietly solve problems he couldn't even understand. But the strangest reaction came from my father. He became quieter, not kinder, not transformed, just aware. Aware that the son he dismissed for years had become the only stable thing left in the family. I agreed to help under strict conditions. Assets had to be sold, accounts opened transparently, no more fake status purchases, no more financial decisions hidden behind pride. For the first time my father listened without interrupting me. And somehow that felt sadder than satisfying because revenge sounds powerful in your imagination. You picture triumph, vindication, some dramatic moment where old wounds finally disappear. But real revenge is colder than that. It's watching people suddenly value qualities they once humiliated you for having. Patience, discipline, silence. The things that made me weak in their eyes became the exact things that saved them. And that realization changed something important inside me. I stopped measuring my worth by who failed to recognize it early. I still think about graduation day sometimes, not with anger anymore, just clarity. I remember standing alone beneath those auditorium lights believing abandonment meant failure. Back then, I thought success would feel loud when it finally arrived. I imagined dramatic apologies, emotional confrontations, some cinematic ending where everyone suddenly understood my pain. But life rarely resolves itself that neatly. My father never fully apologized for missing my graduation, not directly. Men like him often confuse silence with dignity. Instead, his apology arrived in smaller ways, in the pauses before he spoke to me, in the careful attention he now gave my opinions, in the uncomfortable respect that replaced years of dismissal. Oddly enough, that was enough. Not because he earned forgiveness, because I stopped needing revenge to heal me. These days, I work from a quiet office overlooking the city skyline. My mother visits often now that she no longer worries about unpaid bills. Hamza and I speak occasionally, cautiously, like two men learning each other outside old family roles. And my father? Sometimes he watches me the way I once watched him, trying to understand how someone he underestimated became someone he depends on. The funny thing is, I never became successful to prove him wrong. I became successful because one empty seat at my graduation taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. Never build your future around people who need you to stay small in order to feel big.